In order to take this bike on its first little adventure motorcycle camping, I need to fix the saddlebags to the rack that I made, this saddlebag rack. Now, this rack, I'll leave a link to this whole thing that I built in the description below for you to go and check out. I've designed this thing in such a way that you can put your bags on it and it can just pretty much be released from a simple one motion movement, and that's it. The whole thing can come off. Even when you have the bag sitting across the back, like this 2 saddlebags as well as the top bag, just by releasing a lever, the whole thing will come off. And I'll show you what I kind of did if you haven't seen the video. It's basically just under here, you can see there's a lever, and it's just a lever from a seat post of a push bike. And there's a plate above it, which the plate has a slot in it, and it pretty much locks in to the underside of the luggage rack that I built. So, that all being said, my original design for putting the bags onto this rack, I wasn't really happy with. I think there's a better way of doing it. So this is stage 2 of doing that, so that I can get them on nice and secure and throw the bags on, fill them up with all my camping gear and go for its first camping trip. So I'm really looking forward to that, but I do need to get the bags on. I need to get them secure. That's the first issue. The second issue is the number plate is probably set back a little bit too far, as you can see there. So obviously I'll probably get in trouble if I have it sitting where it is. So I've got to bring that out. So I'm trying to come up with an idea of how to bring that out and having it quick release, so I don't have to keep undoing the bolts and then putting it forward and back each time I put this thing on and off. That's sort of something I've been working on. What the most important part of this is the blinkers, the indicators. As you can see there, when you put a saddlebag here, it's going to completely block the indicators from the back. You'll only see them from, you probably won't even see them very well from the side. So the blinkers or indicators or turn signals or whatever you want to call them that I'm using are these guys here. They're just a really good quality brand, and they're really bright and they're really small. So that's why I'm going with these, because I can just put them on this frame here and you won't even see them until they actually come on. And I can tell you, you're not going to miss them when they do come on. They're ridiculously bright. In case you haven't seen the video on how I installed these, or how I fitted them to the rack that I made, was basically all I was doing was getting these little clips here and these little guys. I'm not actually sure of the name of them, but basically that was the hook that would go under there, and this hook here, there's 2 of one on each side, and this hook here would go on the other side there, and then I just pull them down and pull them from both sides. Like I said, it worked, it was good, I was happy with it, but I just think I can do it better than that. These things could get loose, that's why I'm changing this. I feel like I could potentially, you know, put something down here and like attach something to the loose strap, which would stop this from coming loose, but I just feel like I'm just not happy with it. So first things first, I've already started. I've just cut this little piece out. Always start with cardboard. If you're doing anything like this, just always make your template out of cardboard. You can always change, it doesn't cost anything, and you can always just make changes and cut it and then stick it back with a bit of masking tape, and it's just easy to work with. And once you've got a final design, then you cut it out of obviously sheet or whatever you're going to use. The material that I'm going to be using for this is aluminium, purely because it's nice and light, it's going to work really well, and it's going to be strong. I think this is like 3 mil thick. This is just scrap. If you want to get yourself some scrap aluminium, a little secret is go and find yourself a sheet metal worker in your area and go and ask them if they have any offcuts. I can almost guarantee they will. You know, they deal with this stuff all the time, especially if they've got big projects and they're cutting things off. They'll generally throw out the smaller pieces and just keep the big ones, and this to them is a small piece. So how I'm going to cut this is I'm just going to use my Milwaukee Portaband bandsaw. This has been converted into a upright bandsaw. Now upright bandsaws generally take up a lot of room, and this thing can just go on your bench. It's so handy for all the little small things that I'm going to do. And these little tables that actually are made for these bandsaws are made by a company called Swag Off-Road. A huge shout out to those guys. They do other little bits and pieces. I think they do like rams, air rams, and I think finger brakes and dimple dies and things like that. But these tables are really good quality. They're like being plated. They've got the runners for obviously your square that runs through here. Even the sides are being plated with something as well. So really good quality stuff, and it just really is an awesome little compact way of having a bandsaw in your garage. Bandsaws are really worth investing in if you're worried about sparks, because you can cut small bits and pieces and you don't have to worry about, you know, where the sparks are going to land. And this is obviously designed for cutting steel, and you can get wood bandsaws as well, but they do go at a higher speed, so they're not really designed for cutting steel, just in case you didn't know. So I ended up with a bit of an injury, but I'll be okay. A little bit of the actual sharp stainless was just hanging out when I was trying to do up the nut on the inside, and it just sliced right underneath my nail, and I needed to put something on it so I didn't end up with red paint everywhere. When you think about how much stuff that you need when you're going camping, you need something to cook with, you need obviously something to sleep on, like a bed mat, like a sleeping bag, a tent, and obviously some clothing for the next day, warm clothing in case it gets cold, you know, some drinks, some food. There's just so many little bits and pieces that you need, so you can never have enough room. When I take all my camping stuff out and pretty much set up for everything up, let me know if you want to know what I use for my camping equipment, my actual lightweight camping stuff that I take with me when I go camping on obviously a motorcycle. So what I've decided to use to mount these little guys is just nuts, basically just stainless nuts that I have. I was going to make something on the lathe, and then I was thinking to myself, well, all I really need is a hole, a flat surface to obviously put it on the side and weld it, and these nuts are perfect, and the thickness is spot on, so they'll be super strong anyway. I'm also going to run a tube just below this, so pretty much from here to here, for two reasons. One, because it'll give it a bit of rigidity, it'll pretty much sit directly underneath the luggage rack that I made, so it'll give it a bit more strength, plus it'll also be hollow on the inside because it's tube, and I can run the wires from one side to the other and then have those wires coming up one side and one plug to pretty much, you know, work the indicators. So what I've done now is I've pretty much just sanded everything because I'm about to drop them down to the powder coaters. So those two internal plates that go inside the bags, obviously these guys that get bolted to those, and then obviously onto here. And I've pretty much welded on this cross brace here, and also those nuts that I showed you earlier on. They were actually quite a bit of a pain in the butt to put on, just purely because they're so small. I put a small tack on there and they're on securely now, so they're only just to hold that light, so they don't need to be too strong. But they're on there, and that's it. So now it's just a matter of taking these to the powder coaters and pick them up when they're done. So I've just got everything back from the powder coaters, and it's all done in black in like a satin or matte finish, and I'm really stoked with the quality of these powder coaters. I've been using these powder coaters for a long time. If you're in the local area on the Gold Coast Powder Coating is the company that I use. It's actually just changed ownership, so the new owners now is Rob. If you need anything done, go and hit him up, maybe even tell him I sent you, he might look after you. But yeah, they do an awesome job. This was stainless, or it is stainless, and so is this, so they needed to sandblast these first before coating them to make sure that obviously the coating adheres to it, and this is all aluminium, these 4 pieces here. What I've got to do is put some rubber on the underside of this. I'm going to get some contact adhesive and stick it on so that there's no rubbing or any issues with obviously this scratching the hell out of that. So that's all. It doesn't really need to be there for any other reason. Maybe some movement, maybe it will help it once I really lock it down. It'll help it, you know, stop it from moving. The one thing that you may have noticed or may not have noticed is that I stamped them. You can see there's a little L there, and obviously that's left, and I've got R for the other side. So left and right, just to make it so that I know which one goes with what. You know, there might be the smallest variation and then the holes won't line up. There shouldn't be, but it just makes it idiot proof if you do that, so that when you get these things coated or painted, you at least know what goes where. So that actually worked out really well. It doesn't wiggle at all. In fact, it's super tight, and it's like super easy to undo. So I'm really stoked with how that is. This little thing here with my fingers on can be tightened up even more if I needed to. I don't need to, I don't think. It's super tight, and it's not going to rattle loose, which is perfect. There are some imperfections in it which I have picked up on. I'm not going to be too worried about it. I could tweak them later down the track if I really want to, if it's going to annoy me that much. But now what I need to do is put the saddlebags on the side and install the indicators. So for any water that may or may not get through these little screws here, there's actually like a flap that sits on the inside here, which gets velcroed to the top. So I can reattach that. Or however, you know, if you know it's going to be raining and you know you've got stuff in there you don't want to get wet, then you could always wrap it in its own bag and then put it inside here. So its own plastic bag. It does come with these raincoat things, but that won't be obviously covering the inside of here. So maybe you could use this the opposite way and put all your stuff that you don't want to get wet in this, tie it up and then throw it in the bag. So just a couple of things to mention with these turn signals. I need to put some heat shrink actually on that piece of wire that runs through that tube there, and also, you know, I guess all the way up here as well. I don't actually have anything small enough for that, so I'm just gonna, you know, wire it in. I can always pull it back through, no worries. These worked out really well. I actually was quite surprised how well they hold. I'm just gonna probably put a dab of, once they're in there securely, I'll put a dab of the Loctite on there on the thread, so the thread doesn't, you know, vibrate loose or whatever. I don't think it will, but worst case, if they do, then they're just going to fall out. They're not going to fall off and completely get lost because they're, you know, obviously still wired in. And all this stuff here, I can just tidy it up once it's completely dry. It's not quite dry yet. I can just peel it off with a fingernail or something. It'll just come straight off, hopefully. But yeah, that's it. Let's throw it on the bike and see what it looks like. So I hope that gave you some tips, tricks, or even inspiration to build your own luggage rack or even saddlebag rack. I'll leave a link to the videos that I did when I created both of those things in the description below in case you want to go and check them out. But for now, have an amazing day, and I'll chat with you in the next video.